What's up, you guys? Teddy Striker here, and Alex Pereira won the Fighter of the Year award. And I feel like the Fighter of the Year should have been Ilia Topuria. And in this video, I want to give a case for Ilia Topuria being the best Fighter of the Year. And before we get into that, I want to first give a criteria for what I think makes someone the Fighter of the Year. And my criteria is firstly the level of competition that you're taking on. I mean, yes, you could fight multiple times a year, maybe like 3 or more times, but the level of your competition really matters. And in my opinion, it determines who's the best fighter of the year. Also, the method of victory is very important to determine the fighter of the year. Are you finishing your opponent or are you beating them by decision? I think that this is very important to consider. And then we have the performance in the fights. Are you losing the fight and then getting a victory? Are you finishing your opponents early on in the fight? How is the fight? How much damage are you taking? How much damage are you inflicting? And lastly, the evolution between the fights. Are you going out there and fighting the same way, or are you actually making adjustments and making yourself a better fighter? And I think that Ilia Topuria's level of competition is far better than Alex Pereira's. Ilia Topuria fought Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway, two of the greatest featherweights of all time. In their primes, I believe that both of them combined have like 11 title fight victories. They've dominated the featherweight division for so long. They basically together cleared out that weight class. They also have fought in multiple weight classes and had success there. I mean, Volkanovski had success against Islam. He still lost. But Max Holloway did have success against Poirier. He lost. But then he went back and then dominated and knocked out Justin Gaethje. So this shows that both of these guys are pound-for-pound fighters. Whereas where you look at Alex Pereira's level of competition, he beat Ilia Proskauer, a guy who he had already knocked out, and a guy who had only one title fight victory. And also Ilia Proskauer, he is nowhere near the level of striker of Alex Pereira. Yes, he is big. Yes, he has a lot of power, but Alex Pereira has over 40 kickboxing fights. The level of striking difference between the two was made evident in their fights. And to be fair, in their first fight, Ilia did try to, grapple with Alex Pereira, even in the second fight briefly, but Pereira was able to shut it down. So credit to him. But when they fought in 2024, Ilia Proskauer that fight was a short notice fight. That was a short notice fight for both fighters. But in their first fight, Pereira had got the advantage. He already knew that he could beat him. And Ilia, in the second fight, he didn't have time to prepare properly for Alex, which would have hurt him more, in my opinion, because, like I said, Alex already knew that he could beat him. He already had a game plan for Ilia, so he didn't really need a full training camp to take on a guy like that, whereas Ilia, he got knocked out. He needed to make adjustments, and he didn't have time to do that. And then you look at Pereira versus Jamal Hill. Yes, Pereira knocked him out in the first round, but Jamal Hill, he talked about how he was called up on short notice to essentially save the main event of UFC 300 and stepping up after he had gone like a nasty knee injury, and he came back ahead of the scheduled time that he was supposed to. And I feel like these are some significant asterisks that are next to Pereira's wins, and both of them combined, like their title fight victories, is half of Max Holloway's title fight victories. And then you look at Khalil Roundtree, a guy who's, he's a good fighter, but he was number 8 ranked light heavyweight contender in the world. And not too long ago, he arguably lost to Dustin Jacoby, and he actually dropped Alex Pereira in their fight. He even stunned him with a head kick. And, yes, there's the excuses that Pereira was sick, he was injured, X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, Pereira did not feel the need to pull out of the fight. He still went through with it, and you got to take that performance for what it is. And I feel like that level of competition is weak compared to Ilia's. And to be fair, there is an asterisk next to Ilia's win over Volkanovski, but at the end of the day, Ilia was able to get into a position where he could knock out Volkanovski. It's not like he just clipped him with a random shot and it was kind of like a fluke. No, he set up Volkanovski and he knocked him out clean. And I feel like, given that Ilia has the power to knock out a guy like Max Holloway, he would have KO'd Volk regardless of the head kick. And yeah, I feel like that's very impressive from Ilia. And also Max Holloway is a guy that had never been knocked out. And yes, Yuri Proska is very durable, but he was getting rocked in nearly all his UFC fights. Jamal Hill, he hadn't really fought a striker to the level of Alex Pereira. And he was getting clipped a lot by guys like Lower Teixeira and Thiago Santos. So he was bound to get clipped and dropped by a massive puncher like Pereira. And I think that Ilia's method of victory, performance in the fight, and his evolution has been more significant than Pereira. Firstly, the method of victory, knocking out Volkanovski in the second round is insane. I mean, one guy that was barely getting touched by the top featherweights for many years, and being able to hurt Max Holloway in the way that he did, and being the first one to really put him out for a few seconds is crazy. And yes, Pereira did finish all three of his opponents, but Jamal Hill was still relatively conscious. He got back up right away. Yuri Proska, he was out, but he was getting back up to his feet. And Khalil Rountree, you could see he was definitely still conscious. And Max Holloway, he was out for a few seconds, and Volkanovski was definitely knocked out cold. So I would put that over Pereira's knockouts. And I believe that Ilia's evolution has been greater than Pereira's, because Ilia is going up against fighters who are better than him, and he's stopping them before the championship rounds. Whereas Pereira, he took Khalil Rountree to the championship round in a striking match where Alex Pereira should have 100 times more experience than Khalil Rountree. So I feel like Ilia Topuria should be the fighter of the year. I think that beating Max Holloway alone is better than all of Pereira's wins. Beating Volkanovski on top of that, regardless of the heck or not, it is very impressive. But thank you guys for watching. God bless.